Namaste and welcome to everyone joining us today. My name is Sanjay Kucheria, and on behalf of the Sanatan Dharma Group, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session. Through these conversations, we seek to engage with Indian knowledge systems as living frameworks that continue to offer insight into leadership, institutions, personal growth, and societal well-being. Before we begin, a quick note on housekeeping. This session is being recorded. We will have a Q&A segment toward the end of the session of the presentation. Please feel free to post your questions in the question or chat box as the session progresses. The pursuit of success is often framed in terms of achievement, wealth, influence, or personal fulfillment. Yet many professionals eventually encounter a deeper question. How do we align ambition with meaning? The Indian tradition addresses this question through the framework of Purushartha, the four fundamental aims of human life: Artha, Kam, Dharma, Moksha. Far from being abstract philosophical concepts, the Purusharthas provide a practical framework for making choices, navigating competing priorities, and creating alignment between personal aspirations and larger responsibilities. For individuals, they offer a way to balance desire, security, contribution, and inner growth. For institutions, they provide a framework to think about purpose, culture, ethics, and long-term sustainability. Today's session explores how this timeless framework can help us build greater clarity in our personal journeys and stronger alignment within our organizations. It is a pleasure to welcome Shri Shivakumar GV. Shivakumar ji serves as director of the Indica Kautilya Center, where he focuses on bringing Indian knowledge systems, or IKS, into contemporary discussions on governance, public policy, leadership, and institutional design. His work is centered on developing civilizational frameworks rooted in in Indian knowledge traditions and translating them into actionable insights for modern institutions and communities. His research engages deeply with foundational concepts such as Purushartha, exploring their relevance for leadership, ethics, statecraft, and organizational development. Prior to his current work, Shiv Kumarji spent over 25 years in the technology industry, working across technology, learning systems design, and program management. His unique combination of modern professional experience and deep engagement with Indian knowledge traditions enables him to bring both rigor and practicality to these timeless ideas. Shiv Kumarji, thank you for joining us today.
Namaste, Sanjay ji. Thank you very much for
Namaste.
inviting me.
We now invite you to take us through your presentation, help us understand how the framework of Purusharth can guide both personal vision and institutional alignment. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sanjay ji. Is my screen
Yeah,
visible?
your screen is visible now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sanjay ji, once again for having me on your platform. So with this, I begin my presentation on Purushartha. So it's a framework, often thought as only for an individual. In this discussion, we will see how the personal progresses to the collective in a structured and a gradual manner. So the agenda of this presentation is it's in three parts. First, we will go through some basic conceptual fundamentals of Purushartha in terms of what is its vision, what is its functional domain, and how does a common man intuitively think of Purushartha. What are its stages? What are the stages of life and how Purushartha evolves in each stage? And at what levels does it play out? Unconscious, conscious, and super conscious. Then we move to how the individual moves towards the collective, the social. So how Purushartha becomes an offering to the society, not just for the self. And how what does positive Purushartha pursuit mean? And what are some examples of positive Purushartha? When does it become Karma Yoga? And then we will imagine this at 16 levels of social excellence, which we can call as 16 levels of social leadership. We should do the same for an institution. What are the stages of Purushartha in institutional life? What does it mean for institutional culture and policy? How does Purushartha map itself to the institutional framework? What does collaboration mean? Through Purushartha, what kind of a collaboration is possible within the institution? Then, just as we define social leadership, we'll define the institutional leadership at 16 levels. And then we'll move towards a summary. So, what is the vision of the Purusharthas? Generally, Purushartha is referred to as Dharmartha Kama Moksha. There is an assertion over there. Through Dharma, secure your Kama, the Artha. Through Artha, you fulfill your Kama, but always move towards Moksha. That is the assertion. So, there is a bound of Dharma and Moksha to Artha Kama so that we do not stray in our life. That is the assertion structure. However, the most fundamental thing there is still karma because the desire is the most fundamental thing in human life. And it's interesting that in this framework, the most fundamental material reality and the highest reality are together put together in the same framework. Nevertheless, Artha does not just represent, you know, wealth in a very limited sense of money, but it represents health, security in life, purpose in life, meaning in life. All of that is wealth. So that's why it is Ashtalakshmi in our imagination. Kama is collective of all desires and fascinations, ambitions, everything put together. Not just the physical pleasure, but all kinds of desires. The mind, all kinds of desires that are placed in the mind. Dharma is that which balances binds. Moksha is the journey towards the ultimate, which has many milestones of fulfillment, the ultimate of which is liberation, the path of renunciation that leads to liberation. So, Artha provides us instruments for fulfillment of the mind, that is Kama, but that is sustained only by Dharma. Dharma itself is sustained by moksha. That is, without the pursuit of the renunciation and sacred journey, even performing dharma will be difficult. This is an axiomatic stance of Indian tradition. But Indian tradition also recognizes that the pursuit of artha of two can clash. Any two individuals, any two families, any two communities, any two states, any two nations, there will always be a clash. Similarly, the pursuit of karma of two can clash, will clash rather. Hence, there is a balancing framework that is foundationally needed. It's not desirable, it's not optional, it's mandatory, and that is hence the pursuit of dharma. And the axiomatic understanding through experience that the pursuit of dharma requires the pursuit of sacred, which leads one to liberation. This is how this is the vision of the Purusharthas. So there is interdependence, and the clash requires resolution, not just resolution, but an organization of life for minimizing of that conflict. So the functional domain of Purushartha is a framework of life that enables fulfillment, but in a most equitable and sustainable manner for the society. So it's a well-being framework, but well-being not just in the physical sense, but in all sense. It is a well-being, not just for today, but for all times, for all of humanity, not just one individual. So it is concerned with a fulfilling life led in the most sustainable manner. You cannot fulfill yourselves in a way that harms sustainability. The concern is always a good present, but without losing sight of the sustainable future. Beautiful today, sustainable tomorrow. This is the functional domain. So the concern of Dharma and Moksha can be articulated as sustainable Artha Kama for humanity for all times, for everybody, offering meaning, purpose, happiness, harmony, all of that. Well, all this complex reality or frameworks or technicalities, the common man does not worry so much about that. The common man understands that our desires are valid. We have a right to pursue our desires and associated wealth and security. However, a sustainable life, a dynamic social order, and a sustainable society is required. Hence, dharma is required. But we also need to have our sacred pursuits towards liberation that will make everything sustainable. This intuitive appreciation is very much there, that Kama and Artha should be according to Dharma. Dharma shapes a healthy Kama and Artha. Dharma makes moksha possible. And divine pursuit itself makes Dharma possible. Everybody understands that one should achieve maximum possible Artha Kama so that others can also realize their maximum possible Artha Kama. So there is an appreciation and concern for the other embedded in the Purushartha. Now, how does the Purushartha of an individual evolve? In four stages. In each stage, there is one of the four Purushartha element that becomes the anchor. So in the stage one is pursuing desire, but one is also thinking Artha, one is being in the social order and learning about it. One is immersed in the sacred that is created and offered by others. In the stage two, one is full, not just pursuing, but has earned enough to fulfill the desire, is building Artha, that is security, but has moved from just being in the social order to thinking about the social order. Also, now moving to observing sacred performances, not just being immersed in it. In the third stage, one is reshaping the desire, from fulfillment to reshaping. Now, fulfilling Artha, but beginning to make the social order, not just think about it, and beginning to support sacred pursuits. In the fourth stage, one has renounced the desires, one is detaching from Artha, one is not just creating social order but fulfilling it. One is also crafting sacred pursuits. So, in four stages, it evolves. This is an early brahmacharya. This is a householder's phase. This is an advanced householder's phase wherein moving towards vanaprastha. And here one has renounced everything. In each, all four Purushartha elements are active, but one of them is anchor, and others are in alignment with that, and they are maturing gradually. So this Purushartha plays out at three levels. On the one hand, one may blindly pursue Arthakama, in which case one is the balance of Arthakama is brought by extraneous forces. You are not consciously working towards that. So that's a subconscious, unconscious way of pursuing Purushartha. That's fraught with risks. The second stage is when you're conscious as an individual of all the conflicts and you're minimizing damage. So it is through your individual restraint that you're achieving it. In the third stage, it's not just restraint, but you're actively contributing to others' Purushartha well being. So this is the mature stage of Purushartha. You are minimizing damage by contributing to others rather than restraining yourselves. This is where your journey starts towards Karma Yoga. Now we will see how this becomes a societal order. So this is Purushartha from individual to the collective. Imagine your Purusharthas, you're fulfilling your desires, you're building your securities, you're building your societal order as you need it. and you're nurturing sacred pursuits. This is your self Purushartha. At the same time, you could be closely engaged with your family, friends, society, nation, and the larger universe itself, and they have their own Purusharthas. You may either contribute to theirs, which is Uttama, that is positive. You may be neutral towards their Purushartha, which is Madhyama. You may harm their Purushartha, which is Adhama, negative. In summary, or when you elaborate, your karma, your artha, your own pursuit of societal order, your own pursuit of sacred pursuits can either harm others, or it can be neutral, or it can be negative. So, thus, there are 16 different possibilities, 16 different interactions, each of which can be positive, neutral, or negative. Your karma your pursuit of your desire could contribute to others' pursuit of one's own desire, or harm, or be neutral. Similarly, for everything. Thus, if you count as 16, each has three possible possibilities. There are 48 different possibilities at the minimum for your Purushartha configuration. So if you are positive on all, then that is an extraordinary level of Purushartha pursuit, which is only possible for the great rishis. But one should at least strive for the negatives to be minimum, or at least be conscious. Only if we are well connected with the rest of the society, family, friends, society, nation, universe, only then you will be able to measure for yourselves whether it is a positive contribution or neutral contribution, or it is a negative contribution. So thus our Purushartha has to evolve to become an offering to the society. When it does, through our karma, we may be enabling others to pursue their own ambitions. We may be we may enable others to pursue their own wealth aspirations, their own social pursuits, their own sacred pursuits, so on and so forth. So, this is what is an ideal statement of the Purusharthas. Even if we are good in the initial four, which is a significant contribution, most people, through their desires and Artha pursuits, contribute to others' desires and Artha pursuits, then pursue their sacred. That's all they do. Most of them will operate in this space. Nobody, if you're operating only in this space, you are likely to get into conflict. So you have to operate minimally in this space. This is and rest is for the leadership to occupy. This is how India defines good life. So just for us to get a sense of who is what, which cell represents who. As you can see, if I am nurturing my sacred pursuit, I am also contributing to others' sacred pursuits, then I am at the level of a rishi. So this is Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Maharshi Ramana, Sri Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda, and you can have your own, favorite saint at this level. We begin our life here. Through our desires, we contribute to others' desires. So I chose the filmmaker Aditya Dhar for the simple reason that he's crafting his own films, but the number of people he is taking along to build their own, to help them shape their own careers is fantastic. You should see the leadership he's bringing to the table. Hence, I listed him here. Somebody like a young CEO, Arvind Srinivas, he leads an AI company, Perplexity. So he's pursuing his desire, but he's actually building, you know, a life, secure life for others as well. So this is extraordinary leadership. Activists like Greta Thunberg of Sweden, or our own Maithili Thakur, who is a young MLA in Bihar, they're still pursuing their own desires, but they are contributing to the social order. Similarly, there are several young spirituality anchors. I deliberately did not name them in their 20s. And you can see them, they're still building their own lives, but are actually anchoring, you know, spirituality for others. MS Dhoni, in his early years, when he was, when he was playing, when he was building his own career, he was making sure others were fantastically anchored in the team. Dravid, Kumble, Tendulkar, and all were excellent, building their own careers, but also contributing to others' securities. Like that, you can see this is a space occupied by institution builders like Gopi Chand, Devi Prasad Shetty, Nanda Nilekani. They're all building their own institutions, but they're also contributing to others, anchoring their own lives in a secure manner. Guru, such as Dr. Professor C.K. Prahalad or Dr. Varghese Kurian, they built institutions, but they moved into a guru space, renouncing their own personal, careers, or moving away from their own pursuit of personal careers, but contributing to others' secure, professional aspirations. Like this, you can see in this, every cell has a good representation. So this Purushartha to Karma Yoga, it happens. All this can happen when you're little attached from the fruits of your own action. You accept that others should also benefit from it. You're little detached from sense of being a performer. You're also little detached from the sense of performance itself. You're immersed in it. This is possible when the roles that you're performing is according to your gunas and swadharma. Only then such a thing is possible. If there is conflict between your own self and the work that you're doing, then this is very, very difficult to achieve. This is also the lesson of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, brings us this lesson. So, in summary, this organization helps us imagine the leadership levels at 16 levels. When you're pursuing Artha Kama and contributing to others' Artha Kama, you have 4 levels of leadership. When you're pursuing your Artha Kama but contributing to others' social order and sacred experiences, another 4 levels of leadership. When you're building a societal order, then another 4 levels of leadership. And then finally, when you're nurturing your own sacred pursuits, another 4 levels of leadership. Thus, Purushartha helps you imagine a steady progression of life and mapped to excellence, which means leadership. So, which means excellence in Purushartha is your pursuits contributing to others' pursuits. So, slightly change in English representation. This is the individual space. This is the societal space. This is the civilization institution maker space, but this is the renunciation level space. So at 4 levels, you can imagine the leadership. Each has 4 levels, so 4 into 4, 16 leadership spaces. So I'm naming it now. So here it was abstract, here it is naming. This is an evolving youngster. This is an established youngster. This is an evolving householder, grahastha. This is an established householder. This is the activist space, evolving social activist, evolving religious activist, professional social activist, professional religious activist. Note that it is still punching about the weight. Kama and Artha, you're still there, but you're contributing to Dharma and sacred pursuits. Consequently, good guidance needs to be there. Otherwise, there is a chance of slipping, overrunning, hurting yourselves, hurting others. Everything is possible. This is a space where when you're, you know, evolved from your own Artha Kama and building social order, then you learn to be a community institution leader. When you have moved from your own profession and moved into building an institution, then you're a big executive or a business institution leader. Here it is socio-political leader and a religious institution leader. Here you are not just a leader, you are at the guru level where you have completely abandoned your pursuits of Artha Kama, and you moved into a stage where you are able to think for others without needing to think for yourselves. That is the split between these two. Here you're still thinking about yourselves, but here you're not thinking about yourselves. You can imagine this in a boxed way. This is your own Purushartha. This is society's Purushartha. This is the individual householder space. There are 4 levels. This is the social space, which is for activist space. This is the institution or a community leader space. This is the civilizational leader space. Civilizational leader at 2 levels have to be are thinking about themselves, but at two level they have to completely abandon themselves. The highest level of leadership is when you have abandoned these, not abandoned, but renounced the other pursuits, contributing to others, but you are on a sacred path yourselves. So this split between Artha Kama and the split between Dharma and the sacred pursuits is how the leadership along expands to 16 levels in the Purushartha framework. The same can be imagined in a slightly different way. You start your life at an individual level. This is your individual Purushartha. This is the society's Purushartha. So the first four your levels are your individual levels. This is the social space. This is the civilizational space, institutional space, and this is the complete civilizational space. If you're moving like this, then you're a civilizationist. If you're moving like this, then you're an activist. If you're moving like this, then you're a householder journey. But a community institution builder can also go like this. So the journeys need not be as simple as this. The journey can be like this, like this. But ultimately, the journey has to move further to this. The objective is the North Star will always be this. Everybody may not be able to achieve that, but the pursuit of this itself will be very, very fulfilling. Also, it's important to note that the 16 levels are marked as markers, they are contours. The journey is very continuous. Your journey from this to this will have many, many fulfilling milestones. So that is how the Purushartha framework is configured. Every step you take, you may finally cross the line, but the journey from here to here itself will be very, very fulfilling. That is how Purushartha. It's a terrain and it's a journey. The level 16 levels are only milestones. What does it all this mean to an institution? Let's just look at that. The same four stages re-articulated for the institution. So in this case, you're not building the society, you're being in the institution, you're thinking institution, you're building the institution, fulfilling the institution. Here you're building your own career. You start thinking of your own profession, you're building your own profession. Here you're fulfilling your own uh, roles, and you're detaching from your own roles and thinking about others' roles. And the sacred pursuits here are the sacred pursuits that you're configuring within the institution, not just for yourself. So they just as society has sacred pursuits, you are configuring the institution itself. For example, the Republic Day is a sacred space for the Indian state. The army has many, many sacred spaces. Every profession, every institution sustains itself much better when it has its own sacred spaces to envision, conceive, design, and create and execute such sacred spaces is the hallmark of good leadership in according to the Purushartha tradition. So at the four levels of Dharmartha Kama Moksha, the professional culture that Purushartha recommends is that you enable others as professional aspirations, you enable others' professional needs, you build others' sense of institutional order, not just your own sense of institutional order, and you actively engage with others' professional sacred elements. Similarly, you are not supposed to harm others' personal spaces, their physical possessions or their cultural spaces or their sacred spaces. Now, this kind of a cultural policy, if we had the kind of recent problems that we faced in Pune and certain other, cities of India, where there was unfortunate situations of proselytization, that wouldn't have happened at all because this is not a law enforcing framework. Rather, it's a culture enabling, culture creation framework. So you do every day, you all your departments are configured for this. So every day you are inculcating a positive behavior in all this. So the chance it's an avoidance framework. It's not a punitive framework. Of course, all this has to get established as metrics. From this framework we have to create, that's work to be done. But the Purushartha creates that capacity to create a measurable framework, measurable set of metrics for this. Fundamentally, when one's professional Purushartha contributes to others' professional Purushartha, that's when, or when Purushartha becomes service, an institutional Karma Yoga begins. And Purushartha framework is for Karma Yoga. This also requires that we organize the institution itself for Purushartha. So, institution has its own fulfilling desire, building security, establishing institutional order, building sacred experiences. What it means? Fulfilling desires means the well-being of all institutional persons. Building security means the well-being of not just the institutional persons but also the ecosystem. Institutional order means the well-being of legacy, stability, long-term well-being in the of the institution. At the same time, ensuring that the dynamic, natural forces that you set in the institution are sustaining. Finally, building sacred experiences means build well-being of knowledge framework of the institution and the experience design of the institution. So that is aligned like this. This is a complex slide, and this itself requires a lot of time to explain. But this is mapped to purpose, clarity, sustenance of the forces within the organization, continuity, stability. So the Purushartha framework enables you to imagine an institution in terms of its values and what well-being at five different levels of well-being translates that into all artifacts. So it helps you organize entire institutional entities, artifacts, values, and purposes into one single coherent philosophy that is working for the institution as well as the individual. The individual, each element will have a Purushartha dimension for the individual. That way, it becomes a fractal imagination of the institution through Purushartha. Bring any element, we will know whether it is contributing to the sacred spaces or order or security or desire. So every institutional metric can get mapped into this. So revenue profit is at the building security level, succession plan at the order level, and it maps to continuity, stability, well-being of what legacy. So the philosophy is helping you realize material institutional reality. It's not ad hoc. Today, such a coherent framework still does not exist. A lot of frameworks are evolving, but a holistic framework does not exist. So Indian tradition helps you imagine that. This is just the community configuration being mapped to the institution. Similarly, institutional life, just as we saw earlier, instead of making the societal order, you are making the institution itself. It also has the same thing. You can imagine this as one department, this as another department, and this as the collaboration framework. What are you going to do? How are two departments helping themselves fulfill their desire? By looking back into this framework, it could choose some entities, come back and configure here. So, like that, 16 different possible collaboration points between two departments, two professionals, so on and so forth. Same, the positive leadership framework. Leadership in an institution means at all 16 levels you are contributing highest leadership. So, at an executive leadership or a beyond executive leadership, at a nurturing leader level, you will have 16 levels. But at least we will leaders will have to operate in this space, and we'll see in the next slide about that. So applying the same framework, this is the initial apprentice level, this is the professional level. This is an apprentice leader, is the equivalent of an activist. So this is a professional leader. So this is a slightly punching about weight. So high aspiration, what is activism? There is high performer space. This is the high performer space which needs a close watch from this space. Somebody who is fulfilled desires and has been successful in the profession, is building the institution, means is a functional leader, can move to executive leader, if it is not just the function but also being able to contribute to the business, is an institutional leader when it's not just one department's business success but the larger institutional reality itself, and is nurturing leader when is able to contribute to others sacred experiences within the institution. And the same four levels will have a guru level. So here they don't have their own desires, they have almost fulfilled and they are there to guide. This is the cushion level for an organization. The more you have people within an institution at this level, the more thriving all this. The absence of this is what creates toxic culture in an institution. If an institution does not have people at this level, then the risk of toxicity is very, very high. If people are not there at this level, then high performance aspiration has reduced. So you can really map each of these leadership to specific professional aspect within the company, and an entire presentation can be made just on this slide itself. So in this, when you're contributing to others desires, it's an offering to fellow humans. When you're contributing to the entire profession, it's an offering to the ecosystem itself. Here it's an offering to the institutional order, and here it is offering to institutional experiences itself. So there's a gradual progression. In summary, so rather than focusing solely on conventional metrics like wealth, its and titles, this model guides individuals to align their personal desires and their financial security with their responsibilities towards the society and institutions for broader institutional and social impact. It transforms and makes people institution makers and civilization builders and community leaders. So it doesn't, there is no encouragement for people to be here only. There is an encouragement for people to go here. But at the same time, there is an encouragement to be contented here if you cannot go here. So it does not make this space problematic, it makes it sustainable. And from an institutional standpoint, it provides the most harmonious collaboration framework between different entities, and it helps people evaluate, measure, reflect, be conscious of how their own pursuits are affecting another. Today, we do not have a framework to think of how my pursuits or my institution's pursuits or department's pursuit is connecting with some others. A framework itself is not there. Consequently, that pursuit itself is also reduced. So we all know that there is an optimal, tire known as the Uttama, which represents the best collaborative state. The neutral tire Madhyama, it's negative. The suboptimal tire Adhama, that is a siloed approach. That's what we call today as siloed. We must strive for Uttama or Madhyama. So this enables us to design programs, policies, construct departmental entities, build interfaces that respect each other's pursuits, each other's material deliverables, and cultural health also. So it's a framework for deep mutual empathy. That is the most important element. Empathy is an integral part of this framework. It helps understand underlying motivations between each other. Consequently, naturally, it minimalizes conflicts, including ideological conflicts. You know that your pursuit of a certain ideology has this clash with the other. The very awareness and consciousness itself will bring it down. Finally, it's a framework for harmonious society and also a harmonious workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivakumar ji. Very definitely very heavy, but also the framework is such that it has several layers and brings a certain coherence to how we view our life journeys and also how we view our our roles within the institutions we are associated with, typically in our businesses, in this case, or even in the engagement we have with uh, non-profits, charitable organizations, for instance, and how we engage with them and how we engage with the larger society. But I think at a very fundamental level, perhaps even I would say it's also a framework that can be used in our immediate circle of influence, which is our
Yeah, absolutely.
family, right? And therefore, it allows us to, the framework allows us to create the level of you use the word empathy, which becomes a great filter to our actions and our motivations when we engage with the family, and then of course extending beyond that into friends and our businesses and so on. Um, we'll take questions if you have any, but in the meanwhile, I wanted to pose something to you. You mentioned, and I was noting uh, it was on slide 24, you talked about the necessity of having gurus in a business, and gurus meaning, people who have a significant level of not just knowledge and experience, but wisdom.
Yes.
And typically, I know when we think in terms of family businesses, for instance, it perhaps would mean the patriarch who has either, who's first generation established the business and has handed it off or is handing it off to the next generation. So I'm thinking as I speak to people who are in family businesses, second generation, third generation, this framework perhaps allows a I wouldn't say an exit path, but a transition path for the patriarch
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
not to on the one hand be engaged in the business, but also to view their role differently.
Correct.
So
Correct.
so in practical terms, how would this work in a family business? How would a patriarch set themselves up to think in that manner?
Fantastic question. First thing is that the objective should be to identify, constantly nurture others to take their positions in the future. So such a possibility exists only when there is an ability to mentor others and understand that this role is required for a long term sustainability of that institution. The more one thinks about long term sustainability, it one appreciates the necessity of a set of people who have fulfilled their ambitions and are there for others. On the one hand, there must be a natural tendency, natural orientation to be there for others. On the other hand, there must be a long term orientation. One must develop the ability to think long term for it. Three, the third thing is it also comes by treating the venture or a parts of the venture very sacred. A sense of sacredness has to be there associated with the venture. So it must be elevating, it must be transforming. So learning to appreciate what transforms human beings is how one constantly develops an appreciation of transformation at all levels. An appreciation for human transformation is required at an early stage for somebody to later occupy this space. So, if the notion of transformation is not there, what happens to an individual at various stages in life? What brings joy to human beings at various stages in life? Why the same thing does not bring joy at various points in time? So there must be a natural liking for and valuing for such transformation. And you see somebody above you doing that, then the chances of, see, nature itself ensures that there is a certain percentage of people who are like that. We cannot create that percentage. We may, but we can keep the organization optimally organized for such people to gravitate upwards. That is what you can do at best.
Got it. You've, you've suggested that institutional karma yoga, which is,
Yeah,
I guess, the mindset that the work we do is service. It's in a way uh, that this institutional karma yoga begins when one's professional Purushartha contributes to the
others.
Purushartha of others. So, which basically, if I were to frame it in the sense that I'm the CEO of my organization, and I'm not purely or I would say purely, I should say, if I'm not purely focused on the balance sheet and the P&L, uh, what would my role as a CEO look like in building my organization? What would approach, that mindset and approach look like?
The CEO is very much needed to be able to, basically do that much, because that is, at the level of Artha level excellence comes from being able to, craft the most sustainable balance sheet. But it is the ability to operate at the next level, to be able to identify, to transform your success into the success of others. That is where the CEO transcends, you know, just the balance sheet. So let's say I'm contributing to the succession plan. Let's say I'm making everybody appreciate the CEO role itself better. Maybe I'm able to enable everybody else to be my mini CEO at their own levels. So then you're contributing to others' artha in a deeper way. You're contributing to others' sustainable, or orders in a different way. So you can be focused on the balance sheet by not contributing to others' institutional order, but you can also focus on the balance sheet by contributing to, others establishing their own institutional order better. So always a mentoring CEO has a much, higher value and respect in the society than a CEO who is only focused on the, business metric.
So, can you give an example or two of such a CEO?
So let's say
Um,
JRD Tata, you know. So JRD Tata is remembered for, certain aspects of, guiding others. So he was accessible to a wide variety of people beyond beyond his own immediate realm of work. So, or let's say I will give the example of, you know Mysore Diwan Moksha Gundam Vishweshwaraya. In his legacy sustains today. After 50 years after he is gone, he is still the number one public leader in the state, because that's how much he was accessible to the others in the state. That's how much, you know his making of his apart from making Mysore a prosperous state, he was not seeking to benefit for himself from that wealth, but he was constantly putting that wealth back into other, order of the state for future benefit. So balance sheet getting transformed into, every
Impact.
institutional entity's long-term success
Hmm.
is how a CEO, it's in the redistribution of the success of the balance sheet. What the outcome of the balance sheet, where does a person put it back, is where the leadership significantly differs. Where is the output of the outflow of the balance sheet going into? That's where, whether a leader is at a top level or next level will be determined.
Thank you. In modern organizations, or I guess in modern times, I should say, uh, professionals, business leaders are often, I guess, forced to choose between career advancement and what they believe is the right thing to do. So how does this framework help individuals, CEOs, and senior leaders? How does this framework help individuals like
So
them
if
navigate
we
such conflicts without becoming too either too idealistic or too cynical?
correct, you are absolutely. It's a very good question. So at the very least, it's a mirror to the organization as to at what level it is operating in, irrespective of the difficulty. You know, if the top tier is not there, it's not there. Like I said, the toxicity of the organization increases when there are very few selfless people in the organization. The more the selfless people, the less the toxicity. This is how it is going to be. So for a person newly joining, so it's a metric. Just as there is balance sheet to check the health of the material health of the company, the Purushartha matrix is a balance sheet to check the sustainability and the cultural health of the organization. What is the quality of the leaders that exist? Today, there is no metric or a measure or a framework to represent the leadership spread of the organization beyond the balance sheet performance. So, this can help us evolve a leadership framework where you can represent the leadership in its diversity at 16 levels, which itself will force, if you're not there at the top, no, then you'll work towards that. Today, the expectation itself is not there, so you can actually operate at a much lower level than is required, unless there is a business visionary leader. And today it is a leader-driven organization, corporate world. The quality of the leader is very good, of the at the top, then or investors or the board is very good, things will go. But there is no way to represent it. The moment you, why does a state have a policy? When the policy comes, then everybody moves towards that. Everybody figures out how to be, best, how to operate at the best level within that policy so that you are not falling off. Just as that, a framework ensures that people up their levels and be at an optimum level and not fall off, from the grade. Absence of the framework is what is making, things run helter and skelter.
You know, as you were describing, I think it was I was making some notes about, I think it was slide 15, you talked about the 16 levels of
Yeah,
social leadership. And, you had the evolving youngster, established
yeah,
youngster, social activist, and so on and so forth.
yeah,
And then this thought about, I think it was Jim Collins who talked about get the right people on the bus and then figure out the right seats for
yeah,
them, right? So how would you, which speaks to the having people in an organization with the right mindsets, the right attitudes, um, and then figure out what they're good at and making sure that they're doing those kinds of fulfilling those kinds of roles. How would you marry, and which I guess in the Indian caustic context you could say is vasanas, right? What are our vasanas? What are the things
correct,
that make us who we are essentially
correct,
in a way? So how would you marry these two elements of saying, okay, I've got a certain set of vasanas or way of ways of thinking and doing things. How do I marry that? As a CEO, I want to set up a structure where I get the right people in, and then I make sure that I'm giving them the right path within the company to
correct,
follow so that they are able to express their their talents and energies and skills and let the energies flow as well in a way that aligns with the organization and the purpose and objectives of the organization, but within the Purusharth framework that we've talked
correct.
about. How would you do this
Yeah,
in
so
real
there are
terms?
two kinds of people. One is the individual contributor. The other is the, um, contributor to a fraternity or an institution or, So as you can see in that, the person who becomes from individual who moves towards an activist is actually a professional, an individual contributor. He or she does not lead an entire, institutional group. So this framework gives you different journeys towards the top. Not just that, it you can move in any one direction and stop at a particular point. So you can be, an exceptional individual performer in specific area, and you will still just operate in those four individual boxes, and you'll not move further, and that's perfectly fine. You'll keep on becoming excellent and excellent. Trouble comes then you know where to place and what is the contribution of the person and what boundary one should not cross. Trouble comes when the make of the person is an individual, but you have placed that person in a different box. So this framework's capability or the power is to place individuals in the right box and have incentives, alignments, interactions, interface. Every box will have incentives, every box will have performance rewards, every box will have the interfaces with others carved for them in harmony. So you can't place somebody who is a professional, excellent professional person who is in the box 4, individual 4, and take him into the activist space. If you create such a role, so the roles can be mapped to the box and the individuals also mapped to the box. So you will not never create a disharmony between the internal makeup or the vasanas of the person and the box and the role that you're, placing that person. So the framework enables to create a set of roles and then imagine those roles as to where should that go, where is that, which box should that be. It also helps you to map the individual to the same box. So you will offer an individual only those roles where the person belongs to. So according to the vasana. So
I guess I would probably push back on that a little bit in terms of
Mhm.
if I have somebody who, people when they're starting in their careers, they're always individual contributors, right? But they do evolve over time. They do
Correct.
develop leadership
Absolutely.
capabilities, capacities. So how do you reconcile these two?
Then you build from one box to the other box. You build a program, a bridge, a ladder. So then you structure that ladder. You cannot jump boxes at two levels. You have to pass through the middle box, the in between box. So the matrix ensures that you can craft a journey from one box to the other box only when it is adjacent. So you are building a harmonious journey, and you are building that harmonious journey in multitude of ways because you are always transitioning from one box to the other box. So multiple journeys are possible. Very rich set of transitioning journeys are possible in this. At the same time, it is a stepped transition that's
Got it.
possible.
One final question, and then we'll end here.
Yeah.
Toward the end of the presentation, you described the progression from individual achievement to institution making and ultimately civilization building. So what are some examples in contemporary times? I want to ask. I mean, we can always go back into history and come back with examples. But in contemporary times, what examples can you quote that sh talks about that would distinguish between what a successful leader looks like from one that is a civilizational builder? I mean, I can think of one right now.
Uh,
I'll share that, but I want to hear from you.
yeah, yeah, it's a fantastic question. For instance, if you look at how somebody like Honorable Suresh Prabhu has evolved, he was a technocrat, but he's moved into policy making. So from a very individual space, just by he was community builder or institution builder. From community leader to institution leader, he is moved into the next civilization making leader at level one, and a respected one at that. So in our own times, he moved, from the space of individual excellence to community excellence to institution excellence to civilizational excellence. So it's an
Yeah.
accessible example, at that level. At the same time, somebody like Metro Man Ravindra. So he did not become a policy man. He did not become a civilization making man, but he became an
This is the
institution
individual.
leader.
He's the one who's built these metros in Delhi and so
Metros,
on.
Delhi, and
Okay.
then conquered railway and all that.
Got it.
So
Okay.
individual excellence to community leadership to institution leadership stop. He he did not move to civilization leadership, or his movement was a failed movement. It did not succeed. But that doesn't matter. As an institutional leader, he is extraordinarily successful. Nanda Nilekani, from individual to community to institution to civilizational leader, he took a giant leap, but has come back to being an institution leader. He did not move further, from there. So these are three examples that I would give.
I'll probably add one from
Yeah,
outside. I mean, you've quoted examples from India, but outside India, I'm thinking Lee Kuan Yew
yeah,
as
absolutely.
somebody who essentially created, in a way, the Singapore that we know today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this was a giant leap from being an institution leader to civilizational space. Fantastic jump that was.
Thank you, Shivakumar ji, for sharing your insights and
Thank you.
helping us engage more deeply with this profound framework. The Purusharths remind us that success need not be pursued at the expense of meaning, and that personal fulfillment and institutional excellence need not be opposing goals. In fact, I would say they probably allow you to create long-lasting institutions. They offer a way of thinking that is at once deeply human, ethically grounded, and remarkably relevant to contemporary times. On behalf of the Sanatan Dharma Group, we thank you for your time and wisdom. Our next Dharma Live session will be held on 23rd July when Shefali Vaidya will speak on threads of civilization, India's weaving tradition. And this is very much a departure from the topics we've done so far. The session will explore how India's weaving traditions embody centuries of cultural memory, craftsmanship, and civilizational continuity. We look forward to having you join us. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Namaste.
Namaste. Dhanyawad.